right, welcome to a new episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. But today is New Year's, and we are taking a look back. It's a special episode. It's a top 10 list of the movies that came out in 2019. It all leads up to this, doesn't it? Today on the show, we've got Josh Bell and Jason Harris from Awesome Movie Year joining us, and we are going to each count down our top 10s, as well as, like we did last year, we also had these two on last year for 2018. We're also going to get into a few of our favorite movie moments of the year. So it's a great long conversation. I want to jump right into it, but first I do want to remind you to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice, and of course follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. So let's jump into this thing, because like I said, it's a long one. All right, so we have got with us today from Awesome Movie Year, Josh Bell and Jason Harris. How's it going, guys?
It's going great. Awesome, even.
I'm exhausted. All I've done is watch movies to prepare for this podcast.
Yeah, you needed to watch a lot of movies to get ready for this, huh?
I watched so many, and I think that speaks less to how many movies I needed to watch and to how many not great movies were out this year, because it took me a long time to get to a top 10.
So you don't think this was an awesome movie year?
No, I would never say that. As Josh tells you, every year is an awesome movie year. I just think it was tough to find 10 awesome movies this year.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, I saw like 215 movies released this year or something like that. And, you know, I'm confident with my top 10 that they were all good, and maybe up to 20 or 30 or whatever. But
Sure.
I can definitely sympathize with that. And certainly like sometimes, and I know, Jason, you're watching here at the end of the year, like the movies that are widely acclaimed by a lot of people. And I've had that experience plenty of times, going in and thinking, everyone loves this movie, I definitely have to watch it, and then not really being impressed by it.
Well,
Right.
and here's another problem. And, you know, on Awesome Movie Year, as we deep dive into different years, we're always the first episode of every season is like the highest box office grosser, you know,
Mhm.
and you are always going to get like big franchisey stuff, but then you get like a few like kind of cool things that pop in there, whether it's,
Sure.
you know, a unique comedy or action movie, something. But this year, like as I was researching, it's all, and we kind of knew this, IP. It's just Avengers, Lion King, Frozen, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Toy Story, Joker, Aladdin, Hobbs and Shaw, Star Wars. It's like, come
All
on.
IP and mostly Disney IP.
Right.
Yeah.
And not even first, like it's not Frozen, it's Frozen 2, right? Like not
Right.
even first edition IP stuff.
First
in this
edition
stuff.
Frozen, mint in the box.
I mean, we're getting to the point where at least the mainstream is just getting more and more lazy and just, you know, recycling, and, you know, where are we going to go from here? So I think that's part of the problem.
I don't disagree with that statement, but there's still plenty of great movies.
Sure.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are. And I mean, even some of those movies that you just mentioned are good.
Sure.
Yes.
And I saw somewhere, and I don't remember where it was now or what was on the list, so this is not a useful contribution, but someone had a list of like the top 10 movies at the box office that are not IP. And I think Us might have been at the top.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, you know, but I mean, and I agree with you. Like last year, Avengers was like near the top of my list. You know, the Infinity War, and,
Right. And Mission
it
Impossible
was.
wasn't that
I
last
loved
year?
it. That
Yeah.
was probably my number one last year. But I just, you know, I don't think a lot of these took big chances. A lot of the major IPs this year, although Avengers definitely had some memorable moments, as we might find out.
Oh,
towards
might
the
we?
end.
Oh, all right. Well, before we spoil anything else, why don't we get into this list? Who wants to go first between you two? You guys want to fight for it or something?
Should we do a rock, paper, scissors?
As always, I'm a gentleman at these year-end podcasts, and I will give you the floor, my friend.
Oh, so kind of you. Well, my number 10 is actually a movie that Jason and I watched together that I think we were both maybe slightly pleasantly surprised by, even though it's a movie that was very well reviewed. And I don't know if it's on Jason's list, but it's Honey Boy, the Shia LaBeouf autobiographical drama, I guess you could call it. And I certainly have not been a huge fan of Shia LaBeouf in general. I think he can be good as an actor, but he definitely is inconsistent. And this sounded like a very self-indulgent project, a movie where he wrote the script based on his own life and he plays his own father. But it's a really like, first of all, he's amazing in it. Shia LaBeouf as his father, this kind of abusive guy who puts all his hopes in his son becoming a child actor, who was Shia, and the stand-in character is played by Noah Jupe as a kid who is also really, really good. And Lucas Hedges, who I'm not a huge fan of, but does a great job as the older version of the character Otis. It's a very sensitive movie, and it really gets into that father-son relationship and how even when it's abusive, the kid cares so much about his father and about pleasing his father and about almost like raising the father. So yeah, I liked it a lot, and I think Jason did too. I don't know if it's on your list, but I think we both had a good time watching it.
It is on my list. If you want, I'll make it number 10.
Just you can make it whatever number you want, man.
I have it a little further up, actually.
All right.
So,
great.
And I agree with all your points. I think the character of Shia LaBeouf and his dad, there was a codependence there that neither of them could break, and you were right. The kid, Noah, was that his
Noah Jupe? Yeah.
Yeah. And Shia as his dad, like really, really just incredible acting all the way through. I agree with you, like that it felt like it would be indulgent, but Shia LaBeouf made us sympathetic towards him, right? So that's good there. So.
Yeah.
He's
and not only
a good year.
Not only towards him, but also towards the dad, who's obviously like not a good guy.
Yeah. The dad definitely, besides having, legal issues, has emotional issues, right?
Yeah,
so
a lot
probably
of issues.
PTSD.
Yes,
and everything.
yeah.
But one thing that we left out, because we talked about it when we watched it, the director was a first-time director, right?
No, she's not. Alma Harrell is her name. She directed a documentary called, I think it's called Bombay on the Beach or Bombay Beach or something like that. She's someone who had worked with Shia LaBeouf on, some of his weird art projects and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of good. It's not just him. It's her too. Yeah.
I think if he maybe didn't give up that control, maybe it could have gotten out of control, so to speak.
Yeah.
But she did a very good job. And yeah, good movie. A nice, tight 90-minute film or thereabouts.
I believe she even was the one that convinced him to star as his dad. It was her idea, I believe.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go to your number 10, Jason?
Okay, my number 10 is Honeyland, not Honey Boy.
So much honey in this podcast.
You don't have to hear Shia LaBeouf say, Honeyland, get over here, Honeyland. So
that's a good impression.
Thank you. Honeyland is a documentary. It's in Macedonia. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, it's the Macedonian submission for the foreign language Oscar.
It's crazy. And it could be up for best documentary too, I know. Which is about a woman who lives in a very, very remote village in Macedonia, and she farms honey, I guess. She's like a bee farmer, I guess you'd call her. And she does it in this very, I guess, old school, shall we say, way, where like she's putting the honeycombs inside of rock formations and everything. And, then this like family moves in and they kind of disrupt her life, and her life is very simple. It's her getting honey and it's taking care of her mother, and this family moves in, and the dad is just trying to make more money, so he tries to cultivate honey and he messes everything up, and his kids end up like disliking him. I like how the kids are always cursing at the father in this film. And I know one of Josh's criticisms of the movie is like, how did the filmmakers end up there at all these right moments? And maybe Josh has more information on it than I do.
I don't.
Oh, I mean, some of it is definitely editing tricks where like you see something emotional, and then they could just play that into like the next major point of the movie. But some of it I don't either. But why it ended up on my list was because it gave me a real glimpse into a world I don't know, a different universe, different people. And it was shot very well. And also I like that it was kind of very verite, like there's no like, and then this happened to Hazme, and everything. So it's a very interesting movie. I don't know if it'll end up on National Geographic or, CNN or anywhere else, but it feels like it belongs on one of those. So Honeyland, my number 10.
Awesome. I wanted to see that. Although I did think it would probably scare the shit out of me because all the bees.
There are a lot of bees.
I too was I saw it and I was kind of like on edge the whole time because of the bees. And this is one of those movies that, like I was just describing, where it was so well reviewed, and I thought I should catch up with it, and I found it just a little dull. But I'm glad that you liked it.
I reviewed it well.
You did.
The sound design also enhances
Oh.
the bee.
There's a lot of
bee
buzzing.
feeling.
Yeah.
See that in 4DX. and
Right.
everything.
Yeah, maybe something's flying.
And
in your
yet she's
face.
so calm by him. It's so interesting because she's such a, whether it's because of her years of experience or how the tradition's been handed down, whatever. She's so easy with these bees, and like the neighbors just kept getting stung constantly and
Oh,
messing things up.
Wow. Well, my number 10 is a movie that was delayed many, many times and finally.
Cats.
Yes, it was Cats.
Ugh.
No, Cats sadly didn't make my top 10, although I had a great time at the theater, but that's another story. No, it's a movie that finally got dumped to VOD this year after getting delayed multiple times. It is David Robert Mitchell's Under the Silver Lake. And this is a just absolutely kind of bizarre movie that is about conspiracies and conspiracy theorists and theories in general, and how ridiculous they are, while at the same time being completely filled with them. There's like a million ways to look at every scene. There's so many unanswered questions, things for you to hunt for clues for right along with the character. And the main character played by Andrew Garfield. And it just goes in so many just completely unexpected directions, and was everything that I was really looking forward to for that year and a half that it kept getting pushed back and pushed back. And I think is the only movie on the list I got stuck watching at home, but that's very unfortunate. But you guys know how I feel about that.
I love watching movies at home, and this is on my list of ones that I still need to catch up on
Yeah.
at home.
It.
But it's so weird because, like Dave, like you said, like we all knew about this movie beforehand, and it was like one we had all like kind of marked as like, oh, this will be cool to see. And I don't know why they kept pushing and moved it to VOD.
Apparently, it had like a disastrous premiere. Like,
Yeah, it
people-
got really bad
Yeah.
notices when it played at Cannes, and I mean, it's still got a lot of bad reviews, but it has this like
It's got-
core of
Yeah.
almost a cult following already.
yeah, it's definitely like a cult thing now.
It's
Yeah.
got some good ones too.
Yeah,
It's
it does.
on
I mean,
some
I
lists.
saw it on other top 10 lists. It's a movie I
Yeah.
know we talked about when we did the halfway through top 10, and I've been meaning to see it, and I still haven't.
Once Dave said VOD, I thought he was going to say Nicolas Cage in whatever movie.
Yeah,
Whatever
this is just the top
cagey
10
thing.
Nicolas Cage VOD movies of 2019.
That could be a fun episode too, guys.
Yes, I've seen at least one of them.
What do you got for number 9?
Well,
Josh?
it's Nicolas Cage, and no, I mean, like I said, we did this top 10 at the halfway point, and I think like 6 out of my current top 10 are recycled from that because I saw a lot of good movies early in the year, including my number 9 pick, which is Jan Gonzalez's Knife and Heart, a French film. And I feel like I've talked about this multiple times on Piecing It Together, and also possibly on Awesome Movie Year, about the sort of neo-giallo trend that's going on, filmmakers paying tribute to the giallo style of European and specifically Italian horror films in the 70s and 80s. And this is a movie that very much does that, set in the 70s in the world of gay porn in Paris, and about serial killers stalking gay porn stars. But it's done in this like lush, sort of extremely colorful style. It's weird and kind of impressionistic almost at times, but it's also funny, and it's got weird kills. There is a dildo with a knife in it that is used to kill someone at one point. So, I mean, it definitely doesn't take itself super seriously. Vanessa Paradis is very good as the woman who runs this gay porn company and is faced with all her actors being murdered. Yeah, I saw it at a festival in January, and it has certainly stuck with me. It's available on Shudder, I believe, now for people who have that. Knife and Heart.
Sounds really interesting. I forgot about that when you had brought that up earlier in the year. Yeah,
Don't
I
forget
need to see
The
that.
great line. That's not the type of stabbing we were looking for.
Yes.
Do they say that?
Jason,
Yeah, of course not.
Jason clearly has seen this movie.
No, my number 9 is a movie that Dave and I talked about on a different episode of Piecing It Together. And I have it on there because I needed one mainstream comedy, and it was not a great year for mainstream comedies. So the one I liked the best, I think, was Good Boys. So that's why I made my top 10. Although if you were like, you know what, it doesn't deserve to be there, I'd be like, maybe you're right. So
Ringing endorsement from Jason.
Very loose definition of
but
top
it
10.
was for the summer. It was a fun, funny, good popcorn movie. Again, 90 minutes. Happy about that. And what I really liked about it was the relationship between the three main kids and how they really effectively went over the idea of when you grow up, you grow apart, and that you have to deal with that.
You know what's funny about that movie is it's not in my top 10, but it's somewhere around like 28, 29, something like that. And right there is the mark where everything below that, I was like, on. You know what I mean? That was like the last one on I really like that movie, you know? I agree. I like that movie.
I just needed a mainstream comedy, guys. I wouldn't have felt right with having one.
I don't have any mainstream comedies on my list.
Well, you're so erudite and sophisticated, aren't you?
So true. Although I thought there were some good ones this year.
Well, my number 9 is something I have a feeling is probably on Jason's list. That is Martin Scorsese's The Irishman.
Yes, that's on my list.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. But yeah, I mean, obviously there was so much said about this movie throughout the year, whether it was on, Scorsese and his whole thing and everything with the controversies around that. And then just the fact that this is a Netflix movie and there is is Dave going to get to see it in the theater or not conversation.
That was a huge conversation
Yeah.
online
Yeah,
among
you know.
many people.
I kept trying to read about Scorsese's opinion on Marvel, and then every interview I was like, "What about Dave?
What
Where will
about
he watch
Dave?
it?" That was a big deal.
Well, yeah, no, this movie absolutely. It's one of those, and I actually found this with quite a few of the movies in my top 10 as we continue to get through this. But this was a real grower for me. Like I saw it the day of. I very much enjoyed it, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't have had it in my top 10. But as I've sat with it and thought about everything that he's trying to say with this movie, I just think it's fantastic.
I agree, and also I think for the most part, it's going to be a landmark film in the way he used that de-aging technology and where they're going to go with that from here.
I didn't like it.
Oh, poor Josh didn't like it. It's not
I'm
about.
not saying you should have sympathy for me. I'm just saying that was my opinion. I feel like sort of the opposite is that it completely left my mind the minute it ended.
Interesting.
All right.
So that's
Wow.
yeah.
Well, what movie didn't leave your mind?
Oh, it didn't. Well, actually, my number 8 pick is a movie that we talked about on the Piecing It Together podcast.
All right.
Is Riley
Cats?
Stearns? Yes, it's Cats. No, save Cats for number 1, Jason.
Okay.
Come on. It's Riley Stearns' The Art of Self-Defense.
Hell yeah.
Really good black comedy, starring Jesse Eisenberg as a nebbishy office worker who decides he's going to take control of his life and joins this dojo run by Alessandro Nivola's character. Alessandro Nivola, one of the great performances this year, a guy who never really does much of anything and suddenly just like brought it in this movie. Funny, dark, violent, reminded me a lot of Fight Club, which I think we talked about in the podcast and is one of my favorite movies ever. But on a different, it's not as intense and not as dark, maybe. It definitely has something to say about like toxic masculinity and about sort of nerd rage, I guess you could call it. But it's just entertaining and fun. Imogen Poots also really good in it. The Art of Self-Defense.
I think this is a movie that is really going to find an audience in the years to come. I think people are going to really love this thing.
I hope so. Yeah, it seems like something that could get a cult following. And I noticed, and this is kind of a trend since DVDs are not really a thing anymore. Riley Stearns just recently released his own commentary track for it that you can listen to, which I have not
How
done.
do you listen to it?
And you just download it. He
Oh.
just
You
has
just
it
sync it
online.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm glad that's becoming a trend because that's one thing I've been missing since the loss of the DVD. market.
Yeah. Ryan Johnson did it for Knives Out this year as well.
Hey, you sold me on this movie. I haven't seen it, but I just marked it down like you made it sound really
Yeah,
good.
it's good. I think it's something you would
So,
like, actually. Yeah.
Cool. That's
Absolutely.
good. My number 8, we're moving to my family film of the year.
You just have different slots
I
for
think
each kind of movie.
I don't, but I think that would be a fair way to assess a top 10 if you wanted to.
Okay.
I just really thought this was a very good movie and the best Christmas movie in a long time. It's Klaus on Netflix with Jason Schwartzman and J.K. Simmons. And it's a really interesting, strange movie about a mail carrier who gets shipped to a small town in you know, possibly Scandinavia, North
It seems to be
Polish,
set in some sort of like alternate universe, as
Yeah.
far as I could tell.
and it's kind of in that regard a an origin story of Santa Claus and Christmas, and it was really a lot of fun, and I watched it with my daughter, and that was great. So really good movie, I think.
I had absolutely no idea what this movie was about or who was in it or anything, and now I kind of want to watch it. It sounds fun.
It was a lot of fun, and as we know, because we every year, oh, what Christmas movies? It's tough to find good new ones, right?
Yeah.
So this to
I
me is
love
a good new one.
Schwartzman and I love
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
So
J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus.
that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
As
Yeah.
Klaus.
Klaus, yeah.
All right. Well, my number 8 is one that I'm sure isn't on either of you guys' list, but I'm gonna sit here and defend it for a minute, and that is Todd Phillips' Joker. Obviously controversial movie. I mean, so many people hated this movie, but so many people loved it as well. I know it's weird. I was thinking about it as I was making my notes for this. I feel like this movie is kind of like, you know, the cilantro thing where some people think it tastes like soap. It's like I don't get how some people think this movie had nothing to say. I think this movie has a lot to say about the healthcare industry in this country and the issues with mental health. And yes, this is a worst case scenario filtered through a comic book movie, but I think it's incredibly interesting. I think amazingly acted, well shot. I think it's got a great score. I think it's basically working on every angle pretty much. And as we said on our episode about Joker, I do think a lot of that was by accident. I don't think Todd Phillips kind of has that in him, but he certainly pulled it off somehow.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think Joaquin Phoenix is really, really good, and that's probably my favorite thing about it. Although I was one of the people who felt like it had nothing to say.
Hmm.
I liked it. It was, you know, when I was making my list, it could have ended up there. It
Okay.
didn't, but I agree. Joaquin Phoenix is awesome. As you know, Josh, on Awesome Movie Year, we just talked about Batman, you know, the 1989 thing,
Yes,
which will be coming out after
Right,
this.
coming up.
Yes.
Yes.
So please give that a listen. And a very different Joker performance by Jack Nicholson. But, you know, to me, one of the, look, what a year for Scorsese homages, right?
Yes.
There's so many of them. Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, between that and Hustler.
yeah,
yeah.
right. And those were both very direct homages, you know?
Yes.
So that's one of the things I enjoyed about it.
Absolutely.
And I like, you know, and De Niro, you know, kind of recreating the Rupert Pupkin style King of Comedy character.
Yeah.
Right. Right. All right. What's up next for you, Josh?
My number 7 is another movie we talked about at the half-year mark that I think has, for some reason, gotten lost in the shuffle this year. And it seems like the kind of movie that should have gotten a lot more awards attention, which is Sebastian Lelio's Gloria Bell, his English language remake of his Chilean film Gloria, starring Julianne Moore, who I don't understand why she is not up for like all the best actress
Right.
conversation this year. I mean, she's someone who often is in movies that maybe aren't even as good as this. And she is just fantastic as the title character, this middle-aged woman who's been divorced and just decides to kind of embrace life and take control of things. And it's one of these movies where you think that it's the kind of character who could be kind of pitiable and sad. This woman who's single, trying to date these losers. John Turturro plays this guy that seems like a good guy that she starts dating and turns out really not to be. She's got these adult children who are kind of ungrateful to her, but she's just such a positive person and she embraces life so much. And I mean, it's the same way that it's done in the original. And maybe that's one of the reasons why it hasn't gotten more attention, because it's a really very faithful remake by the same director. But I think it has enough of a spin on it and what Julianne Moore brings to it. And there's a great Vegas sequence in this movie. I wrote about this recently as like the best Vegas moment at the movies of this year, where they Julianne Moore and John Turturro's character take a vacation to Las Vegas. And it really gives you, again, something that could seem like sad and run down is this beautiful sense of wonder about coming to Vegas. And it's the same way that it approaches her life. So I liked it a lot. It was an A24 release.
Yeah.
So it's streaming in all sorts of places right now. Gloria Bell.
Yeah, I really want to watch it. I've been trying to get to it all year since I miss it in the theaters, but you guys know how I am about at home watching.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely towards the top of my list to catch up on.
Your hair is like John Turturro's if he doesn't, poof it.
We've said that twice now on different podcasts.
Really?
Yes, we definitely compared Dave's hair to John Turturro in an episode of Awesome Movie Year.
I guess my Halloween costume is decided for next year.
But I mean, hey, Julianne Moore and John Turturro, why wouldn't you watch
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Then they're both really good in it.
My number 7, Dave, you just used that word grower in a not gay porn way, like knife to the heart or whatever.
Knife and Heart, yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, this movie, it still is hugely buzzed about and beloved and is going to be up for a bunch of awards and has already won a bunch of awards. And I watched it and I was like, do I like it? And I did like it, but now after just kind of letting it seep in since watching it, like it just kind of permeates my mind more and more. And that is Parasite by Korean director
Bong Joon-ho.
Thank you, Josh.
Yes.
Which I mean, for better or worse, you could say is two different movies, like one half into the next. And it gets so insane for me. I really love the second half, and the first half I was like, this is fine. I know Josh felt the exact opposite.
I feel the exact opposite as well. I like the first half better.
Yeah, the first half with the sort of mental, like the psychological manipulation versus when it gets into the violence in the second half.
But this does seem like it would be a movie worth repeat viewing because I think there's always going to be something else to pick up in there. But it had some of the more memorable cinematic scenes of the year for me, and number 7.
Well, thank you very much for lending some credibility to this list because people would have rejected it if Parasite wasn't in this conversation. So
This is not on your list?
it's not on my
And
list.
it's not on mine
Josh.
either.
Yeah.
Although I liked it. I mean, it's in
Yeah.
maybe my top 20 or 30.
Sure.
And I probably liked it. I want to say it might be my favorite film of his, which I think he's hugely acclaimed, and I think his stuff is a bit scattered.
It's my number 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I very much liked it. Okay, so next up for me is actually the Safdie Brothers Uncut Gems, which I again, another grower. I walked out of the theater just like, okay, that was awesome, but I definitely don't like it as much as Good Time. And here I am a few days later, and I'm like, ooh, I might like it more than Good Time. It's just constantly growing for me every
Ready
day.
to go to the Diamond District and buy some things.
Thank you
Come
for that.
on.
Should we just take a break and let you do that for like 5 more minutes?
I knew so many of those growing up in North Jersey.
Yeah,
so
I'm
many
sure.
of those friends' parents are like, come on, what do you want? You want a bracelet? You want a necklace? What do you want? I'm just trying to support my family.
My family. But yeah, no, this movie though, the reason it just keeps getting higher and higher up on my list. And the funny thing is, Good Time also as a movie. I think when I ended the year that year, I had it maybe in like number 8 or 9 or something, and then it kept going up my list after I made my final list. But it's just the technical level of everything. Just the fact that they were able to balance so much crazy shit happening at once is just kind of mind blowing for me, and I love it.
I really like the kinetic energy of it. I do think Adam Sandler should be nominated for
Sure.
Best Actor. I think it could have used some editing. 2 hours and 15 minutes could have been trimmed down, definitely, to about an hour and a half. No, but I definitely think it could have come in under 2 hours. I liked it. Didn't love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about earlier, I wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
And I just haven't. The softies are not for me.
Yeah.
I've seen all 4 of their features, and I haven't liked any of them. And they definitely do a similar thing in each one. And it's just
It's definitely not a movie I would like tell people that they need to watch because it's also like an uncomfortable watch.
Yeah, but that's definitely their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what's up next?
Oh, it's me again.
Yes.
So, well, actually,
Number 6.
speaking of movies that make you uncomfortable, after I just said I don't like when the softies do it, my number 6 is a movie that similarly is kind of abrasive and is all about a main character who is hard to like, at least at first. It's Alex Ross Perry's Her Smell, starring Elizabeth Moss. Another movie I think that we talked about on the Piecing It Together
We sure
podcast.
did. Yeah.
And a movie that I think has grown in my mind over time. Elizabeth Moss is just amazing. And she had a
Yeah.
really, really good year this year as well, with Us. And well, I guess The Kitchen wasn't that great, but she is just so good in this movie as Becky Something, the sort of Courtney Love-ish, washed up 90s rock star, who again is hard to like, is loud and overbearing and is a drug addict for half the movie. But it just immerses you in this world so intensely. And I
Yeah.
think Perry just does an amazing job. Like both of them working together do this amazing job of putting you right in it with the people who, and the characters, the sporting characters who are just as kind of annoyed with her
Yeah.
as you might be as a viewer. But the intensity and the whirlwind of dealing with a person like this, and there's a progression to it. It's not just here's this person who's hard to handle for 2 hours or whatever. We see it's basically 5 scenes, the movie, 5 long scenes,
Yeah.
and they jump forward in time, and we see the kind of progression of her career and also her journey of addiction and sobriety and where she ends up, which is not a perfect place, but is a kind of ambiguous position that she's in at the end. So
Sure.
anyway, it's a movie that stuck with me a lot. And I like Julianne Moore and Gloria Bell. I feel like Elizabeth Moss should be getting all the best actress conversation that she has not been getting. Her Smell.
This is why I keep trying to push this recording. It's one that's I have and I want to watch, and I feel like I'm gonna be like messaging you over the next few days while I keep watching. Like I have to add this into my time
Addendums.
about something. So
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that and Uncut Gems would be a hell of a double feature.
Yeah, it would be
Jesus.
exhausting. Really.
well, speaking of unlikable characters, Josh, my number 6 is Honey Boy.
All right.
And Honey Boy himself is a likable character, but the dad, as we said, very unlikable. And just had a couple of things that we didn't talk about. One interesting thing is they really show a really skeezy, downtrodden side of Los Angeles that we don't get to see in movies a lot. And
Sure.
that environment works really well. And I also thought the stuff with him on set as an actor and as a child actor was a good glimpse into that world. So yeah, Honey Boy, number 6.
I like it.
Absolutely, me too. All right. Next up for me is Ryan Johnson's Knives Out, which I think is probably the most fun time I had at the movies this year. The funniest movie of the year, I think. Just really, so many laughs, so fast paced, so just witty and quick, and just an absolute blast. And it was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I've always really liked Ryan Johnson, and it absolutely lived up to it.
Okay. I loved
Oh boy.
No, I mean I love like 3/4 of this movie. And then in like the, Agatha Christie ending of like, well, it had to be you because blah 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 blah. I thought it all unraveled. Like I don't think the ending was tight, and I don't think it really made much sense, and it wasn't satisfying. I love the cinematography. I think it was amazing because especially the fact that it all basically takes place on, the manor or whatever.
Sure.
I love that, and I love the set design. But yeah, that kind of just took me out. Some of the dialogue was hilarious, and some of it was so like on the nose of like, well, we can't let them in, they're Mexican, like that stuff. Like I thought that was a horrible scene where it's like, you wouldn't be saying this if they were Swedish, and it's like,
Right.
so it's kind of a bummer because like it was close, and then like it just fizzled out for me in Act 3.
Tiebreaker, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I completely disagree with you about the Act 3 and the Agatha Christie style ending. I feel like that's like the point of the movie. And
I don't mind that it happened. I just don't think it worked.
No, I thought it worked really, really well. And the fact that it's convoluted and that he has to sit there and explain it forever is kind of what the movie is doing. And to me, was very entertaining. And I did feel like it held together, even though it's convoluted. I agree that some of the like that one particular political commentary scene was maybe a little too on the nose. But overall, like I liked it a lot. It's not in my top 10, but it was probably in my top 20. And I'm back and forth on Rian Johnson, but I think this was probably his best movie.
Yeah, I think that all that political stuff is a very fine line to walk, and I think mostly he nailed it. But I mean, it's a difficult thing.
I just think when
do.
he's writing like original fun dialogue, like it is original and fun, and this was just like very hacky. Like this guy's right wing and this girl's left wing.
All right,
Yeah.
okay, all right. What do you got next, Josh?
All right. Well, my number 5 pick is a movie that Dave will never see because it was a Netflix original that didn't open in any theaters at all
shit.
by design. And that we also talked about on our half-year episode, and that's Steven Soderbergh's High Flying Bird. Steven Soderbergh released 2 movies this year. One very good movie, High Flying Bird. One of his worst movies, The Laundromat, both of which went straight to Netflix. But High Flying Bird, to me, was finally, since his sort of post-retirement period where I feel like he's been floundering a bit, this to me was finally the kind of Soderbergh movie that I want to see from him. It stars Andre Holland as an agent to basketball players and kind of wheeling and dealing in this period when the NBA is on a lockout, the players are on strike, and the way that he maneuvers things to get his client in a good position. And it's just so snappily paced. It's got great characters. Zazie Beetz is also really fun to watch in it as sort of his right-hand woman as he goes through this. It's almost like a heist movie in that he's playing all these people off each other and you don't entirely know like what he's doing until they reveal it at the end. And I know nothing about basketball. Jason knows how little of a sports person I am.
Right.
And one of the things I didn't like about Uncut Gems actually was all the basketball and the sports talk that completely went over my head. But to me, I, as a non-sports person, was totally engrossed in this movie. I just thought it was a lot of fun. It's creatively shot, although Soderbergh still insists on shooting on iPhones, which is annoying. But if he's going to do that, this movie looked about as good as it could. The script by Trell Alvin McCraney, who's a playwright, whose play was the inspiration for Moonlight, is really strong. And it's on Netflix, so more people should watch it. High Flying Bird.
Hey,
Jason
Dave,
didn't like it.
You know what 2 things I love?
What's that?
Steven Soderbergh and basketball. You know what movie I did not love at all? High Flying Bird.
Wow.
And I totally disagree with yeah, it was creatively shot, but it was underwhelmingly shot considering what we know Steven Soderbergh is capable of shooting. It's like, I'll just put a iPhone up here and let a scene play out in a weird angle. It's like, man, you're so much more creative than that though. It just didn't work for me at all, this one. And I would put it on my most disappointing list,
All
Josh.
right. Yeah, well, you haven't seen The Laundromat yet.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen it. I love Steven Soderbergh. So, and I mean, you know, and I like all these like wheeling, dealing type, you know, business movies. And this one's about basketball. So I don't know. Maybe if I take a good long break and watch it again, it'll.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it didn't work for you, I wouldn't expect. I mean, I liked it a lot, but I wouldn't expect you to come around on it. But I will say that one thing about the creative shots, that The Laundromat is like all creative shots, and it's super annoying.
I could understand that. I just didn't think that but he's so good at, like, as we've seen with Traffic and Aaron Brockovich,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Out of Sight, which, that's the golden Soderbergh period. Like, he's so able to make the camera enhance the story he's trying to tell. So, which I didn't get in this one.
Fair enough.
And I will take issue with you, David, now that you have said on your last pick that the most fun movie of the year was your number 6 pick. In fact, the most fun movie of the year is my number 5 pick.
Oh, okay.
Dolomite Is My Name.
Ooh.
So, another Netflix extravaganza.
Although that did play in theaters here. Dave and I saw it together in a theater.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, get used to it, buddy. You're going to have to start watching these things at home.
Those are fighting words right there.
Man, it is fun from beginning to end. Eddie Murphy is really, really, he's going for it all the way. And this is the perfect role for him to do it as Rudy Ray Moore. And it's like this, hey kids, let's put on a show and nothing's going to stop us. And that spirit goes all the way through in between that and strong supporting performances. And just, man, Eddie Murphy, put him up there too. Let's get him an award nomination for this movie. I love this movie. It was just so much fun.
I loved it too. I'm totally on board with it. It's probably my number 11 or 12. But yeah, I love this movie. So much fun. You're absolutely right. I'm still sticking with my Knives Out, but second most fun movie of the year.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it too, and I think Eddie Murphy does a great job. Divine Joy Randolph also is really
Yeah.
good in that supporting role.
Yeah, she's going to be like someone you want to see more of now.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 5 would be Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse.
This is shocking. I thought that was going to be your
Dave
number
wearing
one.
a Lighthouse
Yeah.
T-shirt.
I am wearing a Lighthouse T-shirt.
And all
as we
you've talked
record.
about all year is how much you love it. I thought that would be your number one.
Interesting. Okay, so I really put forth that fan energy, I guess. But yeah, no, I love this movie. What can I say? I love my entire top 5, quite frankly. But this movie is so crazy, and just two just go for broke performances from Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, just going nonstop, 100% for the whole thing, and it looks beautiful. And I completely get anyone who doesn't like it because of the lack of plot, but for me, it's just such a fun thing to watch, to just sit there and watch these two just go crazy. I love it.
Yeah, it's insane. You got that right.
Yes, I do.
I liked it, didn't love it when I saw it, and I don't think I ever want to see it again, but not because it's not a worthwhile thing.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, Jesus, it's just insane. Like, I also thought, and I think we've talked about this, like some points I'm like, Pattinson's accent changed, and I'm like, but I guess he could justify that because his character is so crazy.
Right.
Yeah, you can justify anything. I think that's maybe part of the problem is
Yeah.
that just because it's all like craziness. So
Yeah.
I would put this on my most disappointing of the year. Not that I didn't like that I disliked it, but I liked The Witch so much
Okay.
that Robert Eggers' previous movie that I was really had high hopes for this, and it got a lot of great reviews, and I thought it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually liked it more than The Witch, but The Witch is great too, though.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's my turn again, huh?
Yes, number
All
4.
right. Number 4, going back to my esoteric theme of the Neo Giallo movies.
which the listeners have been waiting for.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to just do a whole podcast on it. It was a good year for those. Actually, another that wasn't on my list, but was like number 11. But we're talking about number 4, which is Nicolas Pesce's Piercing, a movie that nobody saw this year, which is too bad because it was a lot of fun. In addition to having this Euro horror homage, it's very much a Brian De Palma tribute as well. It's so creatively shot with all of these deliberately fake looking sets and these popping like artificial colors, and wonderfully acted by Christopher Abbott and Mia Wasikowska as these two basically psychopaths who cross paths with each other unexpectedly. And it's almost like a romantic comedy about people who want to murder each other. And
Sounds great.
it is great. I
Yeah.
think it is great. Christopher Abbott plays this guy who's decided he's going to become a serial killer, and he makes all these meticulous plans, and he hires a prostitute to come to his hotel room so he can kill her. And at the last minute, she cancels, and this other prostitute shows up instead, Mia Wasikowska, and she's really into him killing her, but she kind of also wants to kill him too. And so it's just crazy. But it's a lot of fun. It's a movie that you never really know where it's going, and it's like 82 minutes long, but just crazy from beginning
Where
to
can we
end.
watch this right now?
I'm not sure. I think it was out on I mean, it was a direct to VOD release to begin with, so I assume it's certainly available to rent on VOD.
And it's in what language?
It is in the language of English.
I've heard of that language.
Yeah, Christopher Abbott and
One of
Mia
my
Wasikowska, both fairly well-known English language actors.
Mia Wasikowska's done films in other languages, I think.
I
So,
don't know what films those would be.
I don't either. I'm excited to watch this now, Josh.
Okay,
Good
yeah,
job.
it's odd, but I thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm sure it's got to be streaming somewhere, probably somewhere like Shudder, maybe not there, but if nothing else, you can rent it on all the VOD places for like $3.
Yeah, and it sounds like, in season 1 of Awesome Movie Road when he did the Cemetery Man.
Yeah, it's a little
Morte
along those
Morte.
lines.
Yeah. So this sounds like this is one that actually reaches its potential instead of just going off the rails.
I think that it does, yeah, but definitely not a movie that was widely acclaimed. Let's put it that way.
I heard a lot of praise for this one from like a lot of other movie podcasts and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess I never got around to watching it, and I really should.
You won't.
Yeah, that's true.
I will.
That's true.
I will watch
All
it.
right, I hope so. I look forward to hearing what you think.
My number 4 is my favorite documentary this year, and that is Bruce Springsteen, Western Stars. And hey, there's no surprise that I'm a huge Springsteen fan, but you could dislike or not care about Bruce Springsteen at all, this is a great movie, man. This is about kind of this Southern Cal sun-drenched 1970s Western style album that he just put out, and which is such a departure from his other music. And I like the album, but then with this movie, you just like the album more because you're not getting, it's not a typical like behind the music, I wrote this song because of this. Like he's really going deep into like character and what it means to be these people that he's writing about. And I guess, you know, Bruce is always wrestling with America and what is American and what we should be. It's shot beautifully. Bruce co-directed it with Tom Zimney, who's always directing his stuff. And it was really well received, which is good because Bruce needed something to go his way lately, right?
He's had a rough time. Yeah.
You know, just the Broadway thing and the tours and just
Poor guy.
Yeah. So this
real
was
underdog, that Bruce Springsteen.
but I truly do recommend this for any fan of music and documentaries. This is a great music.
I completely agree. The thing you said about how it makes you enjoy the album more, like that was the thing that my biggest takeaway from it is that I listened to the album one time through. I was like, not his best. It was all right though. But with the context of the movie, I mean, it's so damn good.
He's just so in tune with delivering entertainment and information to his audience in unique ways. Like we just said, the Broadway thing, and this is like, I mean, you know, so many of these guys, like Bruce is what, 70 or pushing 70. He's 70 now, I think. Yeah, like they just kind of rely on like the greatest hits, and like he's just pushing so far forward. It's really fun to watch it. Like a master just take him and push himself to the limit still.
We should probably stop him because I'm sure he will continue talking about Bruce Springsteen for quite a while.
Yeah. But I will say, as someone who doesn't care about Bruce Springsteen, I have been curious to watch this movie.
Cool. I'd love to know what you think about it.
All right. My number 4 was on my list at the midway point. And not because I got writer-director Sean Snyder on the show. Obviously, I loved this movie when I first saw it. To Dust, which was probably the most surprising movie of the year for me. I mean, I don't know where this came from, just kind of out of nowhere. But it is such a funny, weird, dark comedy about this rabbi who his wife dies and he's having trouble dealing with the grief. And so he goes to a community college professor thinking that he might have answers for him that would help him to accept things on a more, I guess, human level, not religious level. And it just goes in such strange places. It's so just darkly funny. And I love this movie.
I remember seeing the preview. What's it called?
It's called To Dust.
To Dust.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot too. It was on my top 10 at the mid-year point, and it's just below that.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's really good. And Matthew Broderick is probably like his best performance in I don't even know how long as the professor.
Since Election, maybe.
Yeah, it might. Honestly, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just this like funny, like weird buddy comedy.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best like Jewish movies. We talk about Uncut Gems,
Yeah.
but this movie is a very Jewish movie and really gets into a lot of stuff about religion and identity. And I'd recommend it too.
It's nice to see like it's not on my top 10, but like it's nice to see actors like who haven't like hit a home run in such a long time. But hit that home run. Like Jennifer Lopez is great in Hustlers.
Oh,
She
yeah,
is. She
definitely.
is.
Yeah. All right. What's up next for you, Josh?
Number 3.
Number
Top
three.
three. Get out to the ring.
All right. Well, I'm finally getting into some of the widely acclaimed movies of the year. My number 3 is Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story, which is no surprise that I love the Noah Baumbach movie.
Mhm.
I am a huge, huge fan of basically everything that he does. And this has got to be maybe his most acclaimed movie ever, at least
I think so.
since The Squid and the Whale.
Since the Squid and the Whale.
Yeah,
for
and maybe
sure.
even more so than that. And so I went in with very, very high expectations. And I feel like my expectations were met. It's an incredibly well-acted film. Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson are both fantastic as this couple going through the process of divorce. I think it's extremely well written, as Baumbach's films always are. It's got humor to it, which some of his films can be very bleak. And this movie has moments of that, but I feel like it's in a way one of his more optimistic films, because as we go through the darkness of the divorce process, and especially dealing with these shark-like lawyers played by Laura Dern and Ray Liotta, you come out on the end in sort of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and being able to see these people and the way that they can go forward in their lives and as parents. And I just love the journey of that. I mean, there's a big argument scene that's been memed all over the internet that is justifiably great. But I feel like the opening of this movie with these voiceovers of the two characters reading these letters about each other and what they like about each other is just so beautiful and heartfelt. And that to me, like from the second this movie opened, it was like, okay, I'm in it all the way. So it's not a movie that needs my endorsement, but I love Marriage Story.
Of course, that scene, she does not end up reading her
Well,
letter
then
out
neither
loud,
of them
and
end up reading the letters because
one
he
wanted
says
to
he
and one
will.
not, yeah.
And then
So-
it comes back at the end. The way that does is also just really beautiful.
Yeah, I love this movie too.
Yeah.
It's probably on my list coming up.
Oh, probably. You're not sure. Are you still making your list as
No,
we talk?
It'll be. But
Yeah.
it's great.
All right.
All right. Well, what do you have for number 3?
Okay, number 3. Let's look at the other side of romance and a romantic comedy that really worked. Yet another streaming movie. So this is the year of the streamer has taken over for me. I think this is probably the first year where I have more streamers on my list than theatrical releases. Plus One on Hulu, which the young gentleman over there, Mr. Josh Bell, told me to watch.
Yeah, we watched it together, or maybe just part of it because you fell asleep.
I do like falling asleep during movies, but when you have them at your house, it doesn't matter. 'cause
That's
can
true. You
always
woke
go
up later and finished watching it.
Man, Plus One is awesome, dude.
It is good. Yeah.
It's so good, and it will never get a theatrical release.
It did get a theatrical release. It was very limited, but
You know what I
we
mean.
didn't
Yeah.
have it here. But yeah, I
Right.
know what you mean. Yes.
So it's you could, I can explain who the actors are, but you can just give their names since I can't.
It's Jack Quaid, I think is the name, is Dennis Quaid's
kid.
son, and Maya Erskine, who is known for
Pen
Pen
15.
15, the Hulu show. Yeah.
She's great. And yeah, I mean, so it's like kind of this like unknown lead and minority actress, right? So they're never going to release that in a wide releases. But it's basically these two they're friends. They keep ending up going to the same weddings. They decide instead of looking for each other for dates, they'll just be each other's plus one from now on. And it goes where you think it's going to go, in that it becomes a romance between the two, and then it gets messed up, and then the resolution happens. And what they do is it's very smart. They set large pieces of the movie at these different weddings, and they all have like emotional resonance and kind of beats at all these different weddings. And it's just a great movie. It's really, really good. Like, it's the best romantic comedy I've seen this year.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. It's in maybe my top 20 or 30. And I agree. It's hard to find a good romantic comedy. I think Long Shot was another really good romantic comedy this year.
Yeah.
But
And these two are both really funny, well-written film.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I liked it a lot too.
I did not see it. I
Wonder why.
Yeah. All right. So my number 3 is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Another grower for me. Another one I walked out of it, thought that's kind of, I liked it, but bottom tier Tarantino. And as I've sat with it, I ended up seeing it 3 times, actually, the most I saw anything this year. And I love it. I love everything about it. I love all the time we get to spend with each character, the performances, and I think that this is such a it's the movie of this year that I think I could picture myself just going back to over and over again over the years. It's a movie that I can just throw on and just enjoy. You know what I mean? Just a very like chill hangout kind of a movie.
Very chill when they murder those hippies. And
Hey,
I
like-
like
I-
I
flamethrowers
like some
at
good
them.
violence, man.
Yeah.
No, and that Act 3 is so just hyper energetic.
Well,
Like
it's Tarantino,
which is
so,
cool, but
yeah.
it takes a really long time to get there. So,
Yeah. Well, and
um,
that's not all the movie is, though. You
no,
know?
I know. I think I need to rewatch to really give it a fair assessment. I love like Act 3. I know he hated it.
I didn't hate it. No, I mean, I was joking about it being chill. Like, I like the movie overall.
Uh-huh.
I liked it. That was probably my least favorite part, but I didn't
Yeah.
hate it.
So
It's definitely a tone change there, but I think each section works completely on its own and as an overall. So
All right. My number 2 pick is Greta Gerwig's Little Women, which I just absolutely loved this movie. I've seen it twice, which for me is very rare. I saw it at a press screening, and then I took my mom to see it on Christmas. And my mom also endorses this movie for whatever that is worth, um, which is not much. But no, I mean, I went into this movie, I never read Little Women, the book. I had not seen any of the previous movie versions. I've since watched the 1994 version that people love so much, the Gillian Armstrong version. But I thought this movie is, it approaches the story, it chops it up in this kind of nonlinear fashion, which I thought worked so well emotionally, matching these beats from when the characters are younger to when they're older. You really get, I think, a fuller sense of who they are as people and how they grow over the course of the years. This movie is just so well acted. Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, who really, I think, hopefully will get,
kills it, man.
She's so good
Yeah.
and deserves that Best Supporting Actress Oscar. But also Eliza Scanlon as Beth, Emma Watson as Meg, all four sisters, Laura Dern as the mother. Jason?
I wanted more for, I didn't think Emma Watson had much to do in this.
Yeah, I
movie,
mean,
so.
that character, I think, is the one who typically gets the least to do in the movie versions of this. And you're right, she didn't have as much to do. I thought she did a good job with what she had to do. But I like the kind of meta aspects of it too, especially what they do with the ending, which I've been reading some interesting pieces about online. It's just warm, it's sentimental, but it's not sappy. It's emotional, but it earns everything about it. Like, I just think this is a great movie. And as much as I did like Lady Bird, to me, this is like a huge step up for Greta Gerwig.
Well, I'll 100% disagree with that.
All right.
Lady Bird, I like way better, but I like those types of movies better.
Yeah, I mean, and I like Lady Bird a lot. I'm
Yeah.
not saying anything negative about it.
I like this movie. I liked it a good amount. Not as much as my character, the coach from my fantasy football show, who every week would recommend Little Women in theaters. December 25th. I did it every week on your fantasy fire drill. So the first 15 minutes didn't hook me, and I was like, come on,
Yeah.
like, let me get something here.
That's kind of
Yeah.
how I was. The first like 30 even, I was kind of like, what is this?
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
but it did win me over though by the end. I enjoyed it, certainly.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it looks amazing. It looks
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
A little dap for the boys. They did great too.
Oh yeah, Timothée Chalamet is excellent in this movie.
Chris Cooper, man,
Yeah.
it's always nice to see Chris Cooper,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
but Laura Dern having quite a year, huh?
She really is,
Yeah.
between that and Marriage Story. Yeah, she's really, that power couple. They're making good use of her.
Yeah, and Saoirse Ronan she can carry any movie at
Yeah.
this point in time. I liked it. It was, and it just took me a little too long to get into it, to place it that high, even
Right.
though I had to shed some tears throughout it.
Yeah, I know. I did too. I thought it was very emotional. And I was drawn in right away, and not knowing, I've seen some complaints by people saying like, well, if you're not familiar with the story, you won't understand it. But I had no trouble with that. And I was drawn in right away.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't that.
Right.
It was just
No, I'm
that.
not saying it, but other people have said
I
that.
think a fair criticism, like you said, it's broken up into segments, is like you could just say like, oh, here's a vignette, and it's just becomes very like postcardy or something. Like,
yeah,
you know?
I mean that's it's even more like that when you tell the story from beginning to end in a linear way.
Yeah.
So I like that I feel like her approach manages to make it less like that in a way.
I'm excited to see Greta Gerwig as doing more as a director. I like the nitty gritty. So obviously Lady Bird does it for me. But hey, man, no fight to here with Little Women.
All right.
I'm with you. Absolutely. So what do you got for
Number two?
Number two?
Marriage Story, man.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
and as Josh can tell you, I pretty much have lived this movie. So did not a divorce, but a custody battle that was literally things in this movie that were being said. Like, I was like, exactly. Like, at some point you're like, you have all my money. All we're going to do is take away money from our kid at this point. I'm like, yes, I've made this point, right? We're not going to do this with lawyers. Exactly. I tried that. So, but man, dude, he's at the top of his game, Noah Baumbach, as a writer and director. You get to see really, really smart glimpses of New York and Los Angeles as entertainment capitals. And I mean, man, I know they're both going to be up for awards, and they deservedly so. I think Adam Driver, just like, man, I don't know, what a performance from him on this
Yeah.
one. So, and like Josh said, it is funny, which helps, and it's heartbreaking. Like there's a scene where Scarlett Johansson takes the kid to the cousins, to do Halloween. Then Adam Driver has to, take the kid to do like a very industrial Halloween throughout like the bad neighborhoods of LA when there's nothing left to do. And yeah, man, it's tough and cathartic and amazing. And like most people say, it's probably the best movie about divorce since Kramer versus Kramer. And I
Right.
think they're probably right. It's an awesome movie and worthy of whatever it wins.
Yes. I
Right
haven't
on.
seen Kramer versus Kramer, actually.
You should see that. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I very much enjoyed Marriage Story as well. Not on my list, but my number 2 on the other end of the spectrum is John Wick Chapter 3.
Cool.
I this movie is just I honestly I've toyed with having this on my best of the decade list. That's how much I love this movie. I just nonstop the best fight scenes I think I've seen in anything in as far as I can remember. But even more than that, even more than the fact that the movie is just fun and keeps going with the action nonstop. The dog scenes alone are just so freaking incredible. I haven't gotten the Blu-ray yet, but I'm looking forward to it just so I could sit and watch the behind the scenes on that stuff because those scenes are just completely insane.
Are the dog scenes in this better than the cat scenes in Cats?
There are no actual cats in Cats.
Yeah.
Do you realize this?
I mean, it's debatable at this point in time.
No, that I feel like is not debatable. You are the only one of us three who has not seen Cats.
Yep.
You really do need to see Cats. You need to at least like understand what you're up against when you're
Fair.
talking about this movie. But yeah, no, I love this movie, John Wick Chapter 3. And the funny thing about it too is I wasn't a John Wick guy before this. I liked them just fine. This one just absolutely blew me away.
See, that's what I find the weirdest. Like that this is the one
Yeah.
that got you because I feel like they're all the same,
Right.
basically. And by chapter 3, I'm like, all right, I get it. I'm done with this.
I've
But
certainly heard that criticism leveled at this movie, but I think it ramps it up to me in a very similar to last year with Mission Impossible Fallout. Just it really finds a way to push it further.
all right.
Yeah.
So my number 1 pick is the same as that I had as number 1 at the half year mark, and it's still a movie that no one has seen. Laszlo Nemesis, Sunset. He's a Hungarian director. Made a movie a few years ago that a lot of people saw called Son of Saul, a Holocaust film that eventually won an Oscar. And this follow-up, I think, is even better, although it's not about the Holocaust, so it doesn't get the same attention. It is another period piece. It's set on the eve of World War I in Budapest. Stars Yulia Jakob as a young woman who returns to reclaim her family's hat store. So it does not sound like a very exciting story. But the way that, first of all, the way that this movie is shot, which is similar to the way that Son of Saul is shot, where the camera is almost always close on the main character's face. You rarely see what's going on around her. And it really puts you in the position of identifying with her. And as it goes on and it starts from her trying to get back this business that her parents, who died when she was very, very young, owned and has been run by someone else for all this time. And it expands out into exploring this sort of volatile world of Budapest in the time leading up to the war and all of these different factions, including her brother, who is this kind of almost like terrorist leader. And as she gets drawn more and more into this world, and I've seen this movie twice, and in both cases, I get to a certain point and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But I think the idea here and what's so fascinating is that she doesn't really know what's happening either. And she's just being kind of buffeted along through this increasingly dangerous world. And you are right there with her. And she's just such a fascinating character. And it paints a portrait of this political moment without telling you context. And that's something that Son of Saul does well also. I mean, I think coming into that movie, everyone knows what the Holocaust is. So you get that context on your own. You bring it to the movie yourself. But the characters don't know what's going on. And I think this movie really builds that incredibly well. And it earns every moment. It's a 2.5-hour movie, and every bit of it is building to this amazing final shot that really gives you what the whole impact of the story was and how it changed this character over time. So it's a movie that was actually submitted last year for the Foreign Language Film Oscar, which I think is one reason why not a lot of people paid attention to it this year. It did, however, come out in the US in 2019, I saw it at a film festival in January, and again when it opened here in Vegas in I think March or April. It's not a movie for everyone, but I just think it's fantastic. I believe it's on Stars at the moment. If you have that, it's called Sunset.
All right.
Yeah, I know the filmmaker. I have not seen the movies, but I remember when Son of Saul came out, they were just talking about like what an intense, crazy process it was to
Yeah.
make that movie. So it sounds like one that you got to be emotionally braced for. This one, Sunset.
Yeah, this one is too, especially Son of Saul, even more so, I think. Yeah.
All right. So what do you got?
My number one is The Irishman. I love
All
this
right.
movie, and this was to me if it is the bookend of the Scorsese, De Niro, Pesci gangster movies, then it was a definite worthwhile movie. You know, starting back from their collaborations, which involved the gangsters, but wasn't a gangster movie, was Raging Bull, and obviously reaching its heights with Goodfellas and then Casino. I thought this, like, it's a masterpiece to me. Everything works in here. I love I mean, dude, Joe Pesci, like, can we get him back on screen?
Right.
He's so talented. I know some of the complaints about like, oh, Al Pacino's so big in this movie. And it's like, he's playing Jimmy Hoffa. He has to be big.
Yeah.
I thought Pacino's having a very good year again between this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Definitely.
De Niro obviously can carry anything, showing that he's still got it. And to me, what I loved about it was all the things I love about all these gangster movies. They hook you in. He does such a great job of building that time. Like you really feel you're in that time. And then besides being interested in the subject matter, I think there's so many like funny scenes that aren't written to be funny, but that's just the natural way these people are and how they interact. So I love The Irishman. It all worked for me. 3.5 hours, and I would watch it again.
You were just saying about the funny moments. That's one thing about this movie it doesn't really get enough credit for, is just how funny it is at times. Like, you know, maybe not overall out of that 3.5 hours, but when it's funny, I think it's like some of the funniest moments.
I agree, and that was the case with Goodfellas,
Sure.
Raging Bull, you know. So just yeah, man, out of the park. Let's good to have these guys back on Netflix. So.
Well, I thank Netflix for opening this in a couple theaters. So I got to, if you can't beat them, join them, I guess, right? So my number one was my number one at the midway point. It is Gaspar Noé's Climax, a movie that is certainly not for everyone. It is a very strange, experimental freak out of a movie that is, for those that don't know, we did do an episode on it earlier in the year, but for those that don't know, it's about a dance troupe who is finishing up some of their practice and decide to have a little party and have some punch, and somebody spiked the punch with hallucinogenic drugs, and they all go completely insane as the camera just stays on them, and everybody just loses their minds basically. And it's very unique, very different, and it's one of the most original movies I've seen in a while. And it is what else can I say? It's crazy. I love this freaking movie, and I haven't watched it at home yet, but I did watch it in the theater 3 times also, just like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But each time I saw new things that kind of, you're not even 100% sure if they're there. That's how just weird shit is, that you're kind of feel like you're tripping a little bit along with them.
I will say that when we did the mid-year, I had not seen this movie, and you
I
were
know you
talking
finally
it up
watched
so well,
it.
and I watched it, and it's on my top 5 worst movies of 2019 list. I hated it so much.
What are your other 4?
I don't even know, but I made no. I mean, I think my other 4 are things like a Steven Seagal movie that I had to write about, and How High 2 and stuff like that. And
it is
this.
certainly a movie that is not for everyone. I completely could see that point of view.
I didn't make them, but with Josh, I think I watched your first Scott Adkins movie with me this year, correct?
Yeah, Avengement.
Yeah,
which
not
was
his best one.
No, and it was way better than the Steven
Someone
Seagal
just
movie.
recommended that in the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group
Avengement's
today.
cool, but if you're gonna watch Scott Adkins movie, go watch
the
what is it?
different one.
Yeah,
apparently.
Well, the one where he's a hitman and he's Accident Man. Go watch Accident Man.
Yeah. I thought Avengement was okay. It was way better than that Steven Seagal movie I had to see. And
haven't-
also way better than Climax.
Yeah, I haven't seen Climax, so I just moved the conversation to Scott Adkins.
Yeah, there you go.
Reasonable choice.
There you go. All right. So, like we did last year, I want to finish this up with 3 of our favorite moments of the year in movies. Before we do, though, do you guys have any like honorable mentions you really wanted to throw out there or anything like that?
Oh, I didn't know we were going to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll
for-
mention, just because the listeners want more of Neo Giallo, I will mention Peter Strickland's In Fabric, which was, I think, my number 11. That also fits in that trend that I think is really good.
All right.
I didn't know if I could put it on the list. It's another documentaries, but it's more of like a true crime series on Netflix. Is it The Devil Next Door about Ivan the Terrible? I think that's what it's called.
Is it a film or a
So it's not a
series?
movie and you don't know the title.
It's like 4. It could be a movie, but
It's 4. It could be a movie, but
So-
it's not a movie.
Anyway, it's on Netflix and it's about this guy who maybe was one of the worst Holocaust guards of all time, and like he ended up living in like Cleveland, and then they tracked him down and had like this whole crazy case. It's a really good, it's a true crime documentary, but it's split into like multiple parts, like Wild Wild West.
So it's a TV series.
Anyway, I'm putting that on there, so that's what I'm saying. So
That's fine. We'll accept it. And In Fabric,
The Devil Next Door.
The Devil Next Door. Right? In Fabric, I did get to watch that. I didn't like it as much as you, but it sure is weird.
It sure is weird. I mean, all of his films are weird, and
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite of his Barbarian Sound Studio and The Duke of Burgundy are his other films. And he's one of a big figure, if you would call this a movement of these Giallo style films.
All right.
So yeah, I like that a lot. That was just what popped into my head. But I mentioned Long Shot too. When we're talking about romantic comedies, that's another
Long
good
Shot's
one.
really good.
Underrated movie this year.
I was going to throw The Last Black Man in San Francisco and Midsummer.
Well,
That-
both very good as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
excellent movies.
Oh, how about The Missing Link? That was a fun movie.
That was a fun animated movie.
Yeah.
It was all right.
Yeah, not like his best, but entertaining.
So let's get to some of our favorite moments. Josh, what do you got?
Well, I was trying to kind of vary this a bit and not just pick one. So I have one from one of my movies and a couple others that from movies are not on my list. But from one movie that was on Dave's list, from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the scene between Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and the child actor Trudy, played by Julia Butters, who is sort of wise beyond her years. And it's a chance for the two of them to connect and for him to express these regrets that he's had in his life and his career, and convey that to someone who's on the other end of the career arc. She is so good in like 2 scenes in this movie. She is the
Yeah.
best performance in this movie. And not that DiCaprio isn't good. He's really good too. And I think that scene is maybe the best encapsulation of what that character is, of this guy kind of on the down slope of his career and looking back and regretting certain things and trying to make sense of it all. So I'm very mixed on the movie overall, but I love that scene.
Absolutely. What do you got, Jason?
I decided to only pick moments that were not on my list because I could pick anything from my list. It would
Sure.
make sense. So mine, and I'm gonna let you guys pick the moment because I think the overall experience of it is the moment for me.
What a cheap choice.
It's Matthew McConaughey as the beach bum. He's so
I love that movie.
I like the movie a lot, and he's just so McConaugheying it up. Like only he could play that role. So how about we just say the sequence with Martin Lawrence and everything, where they're just chilling and talking about dolphin tours, and
I almost had that for my moment, actually.
Yeah,
because that
he's-
really is so funny.
I mean, it's very singular. I think Harmony Korine has locked in on who he is as a filmmaker, and McConaughey is just like no one else could have done that. I don't think so.
yeah.
That's my first one.
All right. Well, for my first one, I'm actually going to go back to another scene from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, along with Josh there. It's when Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth are just sitting there on the couch, just drinking beers and watching a scene from, I think it was Bounty Law or whatever show it was that he had just finished filming, and just kind of hanging out and enjoying it. And I mean, I don't think anything is ever captured as like a creative, like sitting around with your friends after you finish making something and watching it, what that is like. And I think that it's such a beautiful friendship moment.
Yeah, they have great chemistry, the two of
Yeah.
them in that movie.
So what do you got next, Josh?
I did pick one from one of the films on my list, and I'm also using this as kind of representative because I had a long 10 or 12 or something list of moments. And there were so many musical moments, so many great musical moments in movies this year. To bring it back to Springsteen, Blinded by the Light.
On my list.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, and I won't say any more about that. But there's great moments in Rocket Man and in Wild Rose and in Gloria Bell as well. But the one I decided to pick is from Her Smell as Becky something, and this is in the fourth of the 5 scenes in the movie where she's been kind of living alone in seclusion after getting sober, and her former bandmate comes and visits her with her daughter, her young daughter, who is kind of like not estranged, but she hasn't been able to raise the kid. The father, played by Dan Stevens, has really raised the kid, and they have this moment of connection, and the daughter asks her to play a song on the piano. Play a song that reminds you of me, Mom. And she plays Heaven by Bryan Adams, which you would think is like the cheesiest possible thing that you could come up with. But it's this haunting sort of, it's just her voice and the piano. And she puts so much emotion into it. And you can see how it conveys how much she cares about the kid, but also all the regrets that she's had about being unable to raise the kid. And it's a single take of just her playing it on the piano, and Elizabeth Moss just does a great job of that. And it's one of the quietest moments in the movie, which is generally very chaotic and loud.
Sure.
And I just thought it works really, really well. So also as a example of all the great music moments and character defining music moments this year.
And you compared her to Courtney Love, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of Courtney Love aspects to that character.
Does her smell like Teen Spirit?
That
was good.
Did it?
That was.
Hey, let's continue this music theme.
All right, let's.
Blinded by the Light. Dave and I did it. I mean, dude, you could pick multiple ones. There's the big sequence where our main character is professing his love for the white girl, by doing Thunder Road. But I chose the one where he first kind of like, where the music seeped into his head. And it was through the Promised Land, and like he's walking down these like really rundown streets, and some of the lyrics are popping up along the buildings. And like, man, as like a Springsteen fan, like I was crying. But I think even again, if you're not, that they did a very good job of translating what it is that fans relate to so strongly about him, and why his music is so important to so many people.
Yeah, that is actually the moment that I had on my list from that movie, on my larger list.
Yeah.
All right, agreement.
All right. All right. Now, my second moment is I'm not going to try to recreate it here, but the big Willem Dafoe monologue in the lighthouse that begins with "Hark" and then goes into that long thing is just, it's so funny, and just I just sat there. I mean, my eyes just wide open, just staring at him delivering that thing.
He's always an actor worth watching.
Oh yeah.
Is that where he says, "Why'd you spill your beans"?
No, that's a separate moment.
Okay, there's so many crazy monologues in that movie. I can't keep track of them.
What do you got for your next one?
Okay, so my last pick, I wanted to get in something, this was maybe a little further down on my overall list, but I wanted to mention this is from another Netflix movie that didn't open in theaters.
Son of a bitch.
Which I think is one of the most underrated movies this year, Paddleton, starring Ray Romano and Mark Duplass. And I don't think either of you have seen this movie, so you won't know the moment that
Ray
I'm talking
Romano
about.
having a moment.
Ray Romano is so good in this movie.
I know this movie, and it was always on my list to watch, but I know it's just so depressingly hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. I mean, I wouldn't call it depressing because I think it's actually very beautiful about the friendship between these two guys. And the plot is that there are these two neighbors and best friends, and Mark Duplass's character learns that he's got terminal cancer and decides he's going to end his life. And so Ray Romano, as his friend, basically is enlisted to help him along, and they have to go on this kind of road trip to a pharmacy that will sell them the medication that he needs. And then they come back to their apartment, their kind of rundown apartment complex where Ray Romano is by his side as he does this. So yeah, it's very sad. It's definitely a movie where you can like cry the whole time, but it's also beautiful. I mean, part of why you're crying is because this friendship is so strong, and it's such a nice depiction of that kind of friendship. And my moment in this is something that, again, you kind of have to explain the whole plot. But one of the things that Ray Romano's character keeps bringing up is the idea that he has the best halftime speech that a coach could ever give to like a football team, that he's spent like his whole life crafting this speech that he can give. And there's a scene in the middle of the movie where he is, he's kind of spiraling out and his best friend is about to die and he's been entrusted with basically killing his only friend. And he goes in a bathroom and is staring at himself in the mirror and he delivers this halftime speech. And it's silly because it's a coach's halftime speech, but it's just really emotional. And I think it really gets to the heart of that character, who's this kind of stereotypical, like closed off dude who loves football. And the most emotional thing he can think of is a halftime speech.
Yeah.
But it's just really beautiful. So the halftime speech from Paddleton, which is overall a really good movie that people should watch on Netflix.
Awesome. What do you got, Jason?
I did want to, I kind of railed at the beginning against like how boring the blockbuster year was. But so I wanted to give a little love to one of the blockbusters and I thought a fitting ending to what we've seen of the Avengers for the last 80 years, Avengers Endgame, right? So just that moment at the beginning, and again, to set up where we are in the world, where Jeremy Renner's well-known character, bow and arrow.
Hawkeye.
I know it's Hawkeye, but is just chilling, having a family picnic, and his entire family gets Thanos to dust, and they're all gone. And it's pretty stark and like incredible, and I feel like sets the whole story in motion. So that one, as far as like big movie moments, that did it for me.
I'm impressed it wasn't the Portals and you went for the Renner instead.
Hey man, you have your choices, but it's tough to beat bow and arrow, man.
All right. Well, for my last one, I was gonna do the John Wick dog scene, but since I already talked about it, I will say the Dolomite Is My Name filming the sex scene. Put some weight
hilarious, on it. Hilarious. Which isn't even from the Dolomite.
Yeah, it's
movie,
from like
right?
a later movie that he did, I think.
But they were smart to squeeze that scene in there, so that was hilarious. So that does it. 2019. Pretty good movie year, right, Jason?
Jason didn't think so.
I thought it was like a lot of. I didn't think the top of the top was great. It's not like you're going to be going into like the Oscars like, oh man, there's 5 movies that all could win, right? But I think right underneath that on the good to pretty darn good list, like there was a good amount of those.
Pretty darn good movie year.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of great movies. I mean, maybe not the ones that are going to be up for Oscars. And as I've said, I didn't really care for like The Irishman, which seems like the biggest one as far as that goes, but there were tons of great movies. We could have done a top 20 or 30 and I would have had plenty of movies to talk about.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you tell people where they could find Awesome Movie Year?
Awesome Movie Year is a podcast. So if you're listening to this, just go to that.
Find it wherever you listen to podcasts is what Jason's saying.
AwesomeMovieYear.com, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram, Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and you can download it wherever. And we hope you do subscribe, listen, give it a 5-star review if you like it on your podcast app of choice.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to 2020, guys. We're going to do this again?
Sure. Why not?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So it become an annual tradition.
Hi, this is Wax Trax Records here on 2909 South Decatur. We buy all your old 45s, your old albums, any type of music memorabilia. Also, we sell music memorabilia, albums, CDs, and a lot. Come on down to Wax Trax, 2909 South Decatur, or give me a call at 702-362-4300. Thank you very much.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Josh Bell and Jason Harris. What'd you think of our picks? If you had some other picks that you think that we are crazy for leaving out, why don't you get in touch with us? Let us know. You can, of course, tweet at PiecingPod And you can join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue these conversations all the time. So we would love to have you in that group, chatting up movies with us. We've got so many movies to look forward to in this new year, 2020. But first up, we've got Uncut Gems coming this Friday. We have got the Best of the Decade special episode. And we also have a bunch of episodes in the can that are going up this month to coincide with VOD releases. We've got Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, Terminator Dark Fate, and Jojo Rabbit. So we got a lot of stuff that's like just waiting to come out. But then, of course, there's tons of new movies coming for us to see and for us to cover. So you know what? If you're out there listening and you've been thinking to yourself that you want to maybe be a guest co-host on Piecing It Together one of these days, now's the time to get in touch with me because it is time to schedule some new episodes. So do get in touch with me. Again, you could tweet at us or you can email me directly by davidrosen@gmail.com or just come to the website piecingpod.com where there's a contact form. You can get in touch that way. But we would love to have you, and we are very much looking forward to this new year of Piecing It Together. So thank you so much for listening. 2019 was an amazing year for the podcast and for me, and I just really appreciate all of you being out there. So I think that does it. Let's leave you with a piece of music as we always do. And maybe I'll actually get into making some new music in 2020. That would be nice. If I could pull myself away from the podcast for a minute and maybe try to do a little of that. But let's leave you with a piece of music. I think I might have used this one last year when doing our best of 2018. But it makes sense because it is my probably most listened to, most popular song. It's a track called Dreams Like These from my album An Unseen Sky. There's a really cool music video up on my YouTube channel for it. Enjoy it. And like I said, coming up this Friday, we got Uncut Gems. Then Monday, we got the top 10 of the decade. And then we're moving forward into 2020. Happy New Year, everyone.
and all points west.